Hello and welcome back to Time to Change. And today I want to thank our sponsors, Rockstar X and Hounds of Business Community. Now, today we are talking with Sharon Birn. She is a coach, she is an advocate, and she loves this topic. Wait till you hear it. Jay Grooms in the house, human centered leadership. Jay is my boy. I love him dearly. Cannot wait to get to the West Coast so I can give this man a hug. And today we were talking about accessibility in the hiring process.
Well, it means a lot of different things to me, honestly. But what it really means to me is that we need to have a system, but that system needs to be more person centered, and that we cannot just have a blanket cookie cutter system for defining what accessibility in the hiring process means, because you can have two people with the exact same disability or diagnosis or need for an accommodation or accessibility in the hiring process. On paper, they can look exactly the same based on what their defined diagnosis is. But those diagnoses, yeah, that was a tongue twister. But their diagnosis has, there's continuums in every diagnosis. So you're not going to have somebody with cerebral palsy like myself who are going to look two people are going to look very different. Two people with learning disabilities who need accessible hiring, it's going to be very different. So we need to have a system, but the system needs to be more, I know this is counterintuitive, but truthfully, we need a system for it to be more individualized. Is what that's what true accessibility in the hiring process should be about. It's not what's happening right now, but it's what it needs to be, among other things.
I 100% agree with Sharon. I think the key is to make it about the individual. And I know that one of the big drivers behind the way the system is now, and sort of why it's that way erroneously, is this need for fairness. And a lot of companies think that fairness means doing everything exactly the same for everyone, and making sure that that is a rigid system so that everyone has the exact same chance. And some of the pushback or headwinds that I've come across trying to make these changes or to influence this is that it doesn't seem fair to give somebody else some accommodation, even if it helps both that individual and the company. Because I think there is a huge base of candidates out there that are not being tapped into, highly skilled, highly motivated, very loyal, very dedicated, ready to work. But because the system is set up the way it is, both companies are missing out on that, the innovation, the creativity, the productivity, and then the individuals, they're coming up against the wall because they can't get through the barriers that are being set up in that name of fairness and equity, which is not the same as equality, right? So I think that's a big issue, and I think that it's something that I see in a lot of the people that I work with that are searching for jobs, is how to get past some of those blocks and hurdles and get companies to adopt some of these changes.
It really irks me when I hear companies talking in that way that you just described. When it's so rigid that it's literally a box, and we need to fit inside this box in order for it to be fair for everyone. Unfortunately, life is not necessarily fair for everyone, and people have been given different have different challenges to getting in and actually being able to have an interview, to getting past even the hiring, to starting the hiring process. Go ahead, Sharon.
I was just going to say that I think one of the things that people don't realize about accommodations in the workplace or anywhere else is that accommodations are designed to level the playing field for the person that needs the accommodation. And what I mean by that is simply this. It's not about, if you want to talk about making something fair, then we need to start looking at an accommodation for what it really is. And that is making it fair for the person that has a deficit in a certain area But if we can remove that deficit by asking a question a different way or providing a different way to fill out an application, then we are leveling the playing field so that person has an equal shot at getting the job and or maintaining the job. So we need to really re-educate people on the fact that accommodations are not so that you can give somebody, preferential treatment, or it has to be rigid so that it's fair for everyone, when the accommodation really is about making it fair.
I remember when my wife she asked for a couple of different things, like a Veridesk. A Veridesk allows you to electronically raise and lower so that she can stand sometimes, she can sit sometimes, she can raise the level because of things that she has going on with her hips and knees, etc., and sitting for long periods of time. And they did it without even blinking. And I mean, if you've ever priced out these things, they're not cheap.
I don't understand why some companies will do it without blinking and others have such a problem. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chason. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. I mean, it really is exactly what it is. But
and I want to add something important about that, because I've seen exactly what you're talking about, Chason. I've been in office settings where equipment is purchased, no question, right? Whether it's a Veridesk or a different chair or different computer accommodations, in the thousands of dollars for an individual. Companies, at least the ones I've experienced, will just pay for it. But the changes in getting somebody into your company, the changes in hiring, the changes in candidacy, the changes in application process, they don't cost anything. There's no equipment that has to be purchased, no modification to a building. These are simple process changes.
Exactly.
And really, it's about the changes in the mindset, right? Because when you think about somebody coming into an application, the structure that it's built right now is like it's a square hole. And if you're not a square peg, you can't get through it, whether it's being knocked out in the early parts of the process, whether it's not getting clear instructions on what's supposed to happen next, whether it's having audio along with visuals for what you're reading and what you're trying to understand. All of those don't cost anything, but the backside potential, the benefit to the company is that they have all of these highly skilled, highly creative people out there that just aren't getting in.
And they have loyal people.
Yeah.
Because one of the characteristics of people with disabilities, because they have so much difficulty getting in and they want to work so badly, most of them, I'm not going to say all, but most,
sure,
the loyalty and the retention and the willingness to show up and not call out sick and all these things, it's proven researchable information about these characteristics of persons with disabilities. The difficulty with the hiring process too, especially now, because now most of the application process is now done online. And while a lot of people think, oh, that simplified things, no, it didn't. It made it much harder for people with disabilities, because a lot of people with disabilities can't access the computers by themselves, number one. Number two, have you ever been somebody with a disability who's trying to answer these questions with such black and white answers? And as a person without a disability, I'm sure people get frustrated with the black and white nature of the application process. But take somebody with a disability who's got to answer these questions in a black and white nature, or, gee, if you had X scenario, what if you saw a coworker doing, stealing pencils, what would you do? Hello? What, no, it doesn't work for most people. That's not a reasonable accommodation for anybody with a disability. So I think we need to also go back to, interviewing, having people fill out the application on site with help, either with a job coach or with somebody from HR. And that's another thing. People with disabilities, my goal is to have HR departments be willing to help people who need the accommodations, not necessarily having them to have a job coach to come with them from another agency. These things should be built in. to the organizational processes. I really believe that. And I'm gonna go to my grave, you know.
100%. 100%. And making sure that the hiring managers, the recruiting teams, the senior leaders don't see that accommodation as a negative against that applicant, right?
Absolutely.
I am one of those people that could use accommodation when I'm going through that process. But I am always extremely hesitant to check that box or to email that email, because a lot of times when you're in that application online, there's that tiny little line that says, if you need accommodation, and it's written by legal, because almost all of them say the same thing, and almost all of them have the same text. So, but to me, the current environment feels like if I ask for that, that counts against me.
It does. I'm going to tell you something. If you ask for that, it automatically gets your application kicked to the garbage can, because too many employers see it as they're going to have to do extra. They're going to have to do more work. And it shouldn't be seen that way, because you might have to do a little bit more work with the first applicant or the second applicant. But once you get in a rhythm of understanding that it really doesn't take extra work, and even if you want to view it that way, that extra work is going to pay off in the end. Because again, I'll say that any accommodation you make for somebody with a disability is going to help the masses at large. That accommodation is going to help every one of your applicants or every one of your employees. And most of the time, whatever accommodations a person with a disability needs during the application process are accommodations they're going to need on the job. They may need even more accommodations to do the job tasks, but most of what you're going to accommodate in the application process is going to filter in for that person if and when you hire them. Yeah. So you're just getting ahead of the game if you're hiring that person.
Agreed 100%. And there's two levels of this decision making of these activities really that could happen. Number one are the people in charge of it all, right? Whoever's in charge of all of HR, whoever's head of the entire area of making the decisions of how they put job applications out, how they accept them, what accommodations. So to those senior leaders, I would say, take a long, hard look at that process. Find some disability and imagine yourself trying to go through it from start to end. Every little step along the way, where are the barriers? And make process changes. If you're not in that level, if you're not making those decisions for all of HR, then at a recruiter level, the best you can do is to be clear and concise and to make sure that if someone does ask for these accommodations, that is not a negative, that it's just seen as another way to get somebody in the door. Because the goal of this whole thing of recruiting, the goal of it all is to get someone who's going to benefit the company. It's to get someone who's going to elevate the company, who's going to execute the tasks, who's going to do the job. It's not about finding somebody who fits into these little boxes that we've drawn as a culture, right?
You want to know one really great way that HR could work around this and work through it? Hire people with disabilities to help them streamline their application process. Because somebody like myself, I have cerebral palsy, but I know about other disabilities and how to accommodate them because of my life experience, but also because that's where I wanted to make a change in this area. So I have my master's in rehabilitation counseling because I wanted to make an impact on employment for people with disabilities. So hire people with disabilities to help you through this process. You'll be mind blown about the information you can receive.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for being part of Time to Change. My name is Chason Forehand. We'll catch you next time.